So how do the poets explore one of the, and we're doing Paris because that's what we know. Okay, so first things first, what is the question about? Looking at the question, and you've got it at the top of your sheet, so let's open it in front of us. Yeah? Okay, any annotations I do around here, you need to do on your sheet. I might extend your homework actually, because I want to spend some time making sure we can get this sorted out, so I'll adjust the homework. Shall we change the homework to next Friday? Because that then gives me Wednesday's lesson to we can actually do some writing on it together. We'll do that. I'll make that change. So, looking at that's your question. What is it about? Ellie? Nope. It's not exploring the concept of love.
Is there a picture of this on show you?
Picture of what?
Of this.
No, that's why you've got it in front of you. Oh, take a photo of it. I'll take that one. Archie.
Is it about the poet?
It is about the poets. Okay? That is what the focus of the question is about. Every question you get in English, apart from the awful question ones in the language paper, are about the writers. They are not about the poems. They're not about the plays. They're not about the novella. They're not about the extracts, because all an extract is just a bunch of words written on a page. All a poem is a bunch of words written on a page. Our job is to understand what are the choices the writer has made in order to choose those words and put those words in that order on that page to create a poem. The poem is the artifact. This isn't about the poetry, this is about the writer. So, what's the next focus of the question? So if we're always about the writers, always about the poets. So you name check all the time. Okay? So you need to name check the poets. If you don't know what the poet's name is, just write the poet. Okay? That's fine. But the focus of the question is about the poet's choices. Ellie, what is the next thing that we need to, what is at the heart of this that we then have to pay attention to? The concept of love. Good. Okay. So these poets have chosen to explore the concept of love, and they've chosen to do that in a poem. Okay. So these are going to be sort of the overarching umbrella theme. Okay, that's generally, I have an idea about shoelaces, and it's the fact that they are awful and should be banned. So I'm going to write a poem about the banning of shoelaces. Poet number 2 goes, you know what, I also have an idea about shoelaces, and I think they're the best thing since sliced bread, and whoever invented them clearly is a millionaire, so I'm going to write a poem about my concept of the importance of shoelaces. Both people, weirdly, talk about shoelaces. Each poet will talk about their own interpretation of love as a concept. Okay? So you are expected to look for the differences. Do not get caught up on the assumption that these two poets are going to do the same thing. They're not, because they're two completely different people. One is called Jackie, the other one's called James. Okay? One is based in Paris, the other one is about ghosting. Both are about the concept of love, but they go at it at a completely different side, different angle. So think about sort of a multifaceted coin, like the 50p piece, or the pound coin especially. It's got lots and lots of different sides, isn't it? Each of them has got a slightly different angle going into it. What else? What is a non-negotiable? What is a non-negotiable? Dominic. Izzy. Non-negotiable. You can't negotiate it. This is utterly compulsory. This is what you do on pain of death. In the question, do you not get to negotiate with? And I'm only asking you to because you didn't answer the right question, and this is a potential pit to fall into if you don't do as you're told in the question. What is non-negotiable in the question? Anyone else give them a hand? What do we think? Will?
Base your answer on dusting things.
Dusting. That is non-negotiable. So anything that I'm writing, highlighting here in red is absolutely compulsory. Okay? What the exam board will do is any named poem, okay, and a named poem is simply a poem that is named in the question, including the title, you will get a copy of in the paper. Okay? The other poem, however, you have to choose. Yeah? So you need to know it. And you will do. There aren't going to be any nasty surprises. My vision is that we will have done every possible combination we can think of. So you will have done either an essay on it, a planning, done some paragraph work on it. So you would have done as many, we would have covered some of the comparisons. But if you have a look at your question, okay, it says one other poem from the collection, and it would have said that you have studied. Okay? So think about the pitfall. If you choose a poem from a collection that you haven't studied, are you going to get any of the marks? No. So if you do dusting, and then you choose to do, I don't know, Flag by John Agard, and their concepts of love, I think you could work the interpretation, but you're not going to get any marks because you've chosen from a different collection of poetry. Which is why I've made you cross everything else off, and why you only get to the poems that we're studying in your copy of the anthology. Okay, so trying to really sort of limit any possibility of anyone going rogue. Okay, so this one here is also yours, but it is your choice. Okay, so this is printed in the paper. Okay, so it's the named poem that is printed. This one, okay, is your choice. Now, the choice poem is really, really important. If you don't choose the right choice poem, it could make or break your response. Very similarly to the Macbeth question, if you don't choose the extract question and you go for the discursive, it could make or break it. Don't try to be clever, don't try to be fancy. Go for the one that you can write the most about and you can write the most about well. Okay? This part is the overarching aspect. It's also the most flexible. Now, as you know, I like to break things, mainly rules, and not necessarily do as I'm told. This you can't get away with. However, I want you to bend this concept of love to the point of breaking, but don't ever break it. Okay? And that's what we're going to have a look at today. So based on our poems, so you annotate it on your copy. So based on our poems, looking at both of them, what could be our interpretation? How does, for example, Paris, so James Fenton, well, how does he interpret the concept of love? So in Paris, what does love mean? What is love in Paris? This is where you go into your notes. Dom.
Going around all like the sites and stuff. Going to the Louvre and stuff.
Okay, so sightseeing. Okay, yep. That's definitely one concept. Exploring isn't just kind of doing one thing. When you were dinky and you were told to, you went to a local park or a country park or I don't know, Stately Home Gardens, or dare I say, go into a cathedral. That's what we used to do whenever we went on holiday. We always went to see churches. Generally, they're just pretty samey. And we were told to go and explore and come back when you're hungry. What does that mean? What are you basically given license to do? Go and explore the church, children. Go and explore the woods and come back when you want something to eat. What does that mean? What do you do when you go and explore, Jonty?
Like have fun.
You just go and you don't make it up. Well, you do make it up, but do you follow the beaten path? Do you go, well, the signpost says go left, so I'm going to go left? Do you do that? No. Where do you go, Lily?
Not a path.
Don't necessarily have to follow the path, do you? Just kind of go where you want to go and find out stuff that you want to go and find out. Yeah? Exploring is doing that. It's going and finding out stuff. It is not going to be a fixed, you have to go down, you have to turn left, and when you get to the turn left, you've got to stop and look at a tree. And then you've got to read the really boring information on the sign, and then you've got to write an essay on it and then hand it in at the end of the day. That's too restrictive. The beauty about this is exploring is not restrictive. So let's go back to Paris. How does James Fenton not restrict himself or the voices in the poem about this concept of love? Is this the concept of love he sticks to? No, it's not. And we know that because we've worked it out. So where else does he go? Where else does he go off on a wander? What else does he say about what love is? Skim and scan your notes. Love is pain and anger. Jonty?
I was going to say it's not all like Hollywood and glamour. It's like staying together.
Staying together in the moment. Yeah? Okay. That'll give us a starting point. What about in dusting? Is it the same concept of love, or are they on a different side to the coin? What do we think? Is dusting the same? Is dusting about sightseeing? You know, basically so the romance. Okay, kind of your Hollywood version. Does dusting cover the Hollywood version of love? Think about it. Is Hollywood real? The concept of Hollywood. The glitz and the glamour, la la land. It's not real. In dusting, what is the Hollywood aspect? Look at the poems. We covered this yesterday. Ellie? The dream. Okay, so it's the in reality. The fantasy of it. These two, that one and that one, that's a cracking connection. They both deal with a similar approach, a similar sort of concept. Do they deal with them in the same way? No, because James says sod off. Okay? If we say sod off to sodding Notre Dame, get rid of it. And in dusting, she says the future. Tone is really different. So they may have the same approach, but the way they do it is different. And that's the richness of your analysis. That's the richness of your comparison. That's where it can get really exciting. And I've already made you do these cross-references. How else does dusting deal with concept of love? What does she cover? As in the poet. What does the poet cover? Is it similar to James? Dom?
There's a lot of like feelings in it.
Like loads of feelings. With Fenton, we're fairly simple, aren't we? So it's sort of pain and anger to start with, and then we kind of get down to this staying together in the moment. So we have a really lovely progression. Do we get that progression in dusting?
Yeah.
Do we? Think about the last couple of stanzas. Were we moving from A to B to C to D to E to F?
Is it like hope to anger?
hope to anger to despair to giving up to then threatening to violence to she is all over the place. So the feelings here are tumultuous. But we've got anger, same here. I think there's a bit of pain, same here. It gets darker though. I think we've got a bit of violence. We have despair. We have hope. We have do we have resentment? Did we say there was resentment? I don't think. And then I think we kind of give up. There's threatening. There's loads of stuff. Okay. So they do similar things. They have similar concepts, overarching ideas, abstract things, like cloud ideas, if you will, but then they deal with them in different ways. So that's kind of starting the process with the planning. The next stage from there, once we've got these, this basically becomes our structure. These are our connecting points. This is not a compare or contrast. These are connections between the poems. Okay? From this, what do we then generate? What do we then generate from this sort of drawing together of ideas? What is vital in an English literature essay? Go on, Ellie. Yeah, evidence. Quotations. What do you then do with your quotations? It's all very well to plonk in a quote, but what do you need to do with it? This up here is the what. What's the concept? How is that concept shown? Why is this important? So, I will come to you in a minute. So, without actually consciously necessarily being aware of it, let me find it. Ooh. No. No. Okay. This bit here. What are those concepts? This bit here. How have they done it? Well, they've done it not through quotes, not through words. You are never allowed to use the word. Okay? That's also banned. That's the how bit. And then further down we'll get to, but why? And that's the message. So, Dom, what are we going to do with our quotations?
Explain it and sort of how to link, like, basically just explain it and like the why, sort of.
Yes, but I'm going to say that I'm going to kind of soften the edges around that bit for a minute. Dan? What were you going to say?
I was going to say.
Oh, and you were just waving. Good. Archie?
Yeah, you explain it and then explain why the writer's done it.
Okay, so when you have a quotation, we do something called explode, okay? So exactly the same way that we did it with Inspector Calls, well, maybe not, but definitely with Macbeth, okay? So you need to unpick the words. The difficulty of explaining something is you simply repeat what the quote says, or you paraphrase what the quote says. You don't need to do that. I know what the quote says, you know what the quote says. What we need to do is to work out how that quote proves that point. How does the how prove the what? Okay? So this bit here, this is all the how. So you need to unpick it. We need to look at specific choices. So, for example, why did the poet write an empty cup rather than just cup? Why do we have that pre-modifying adjective, empty, okay, to help us understand? And then how does that work, how does that develop an interpretation? Where does that take us? So the how informs the why. So these two kind of blur in together. So you need to think about those specific choices, which means that your quotations are how long? Lily? Short. Yeah, short. You're not copying out lines and lines and lines. If your quote goes over a line, just do what you want. If you have, for example, like this line here, I'm in Paris with your eyes, your mouth, and you go, I'm in Paris, ... mouth, but actually you want to talk about your eyes and your mouth, don't put the first bit, just do the bit that you actually want to write about. Don't hide that in an ellipses. The ellipses represent, I don't need these words, so I'm not going to use them, but I want the top end and I want the bottom end. I'm not really bothered about the middle. Okay? So, for example, I might go, I'm is what I want, and then it's repeated. So I want to talk about the anaphora that I get from the 3 lines of I'm. So I just do I'm, ... I'm, ... I'm, ... Because I'm not at the moment bothered about all of this. But I get the fact that I need to talk about them and reveal to my marker that this is kind of where it's happening, okay? But if I want to talk about, for example, your eyes, I'm not going to put in I'm, ... mouth, because, and I want to talk about eyes. I'm just going to give you your eyes because that's what I want to talk about. So you need to get your quoting, you need to get that right. When we deal with a quote, what else are we going to talk about? Jonty?
The context,
Of?
like the words you're choosing.
To develop an interpretation. Yeah? Okay. That then comes us into the why part. So these two, as I said, they do cross over. Okay. This bit is where all the juicy interpretation comes from. Okay. So this part could be the context of the line in the poem. So, for example, we've got an empty cup quite early on, but then later, structurally, we talk about, what did you talk about towards the end? A photo, just a random photo. And we've got that cyclical structure. Okay, so in context of how it's been used in the poem, then we can talk about it. But you can't just say they use a word. I've given you the terminology. Within this, you need to talk about the terms. So you need to bring in terminology. Okay? All of that sort of feeds into quite a hefty, high-punching paragraph. Now, another question. How much do I have to write? Well, other than how long is a piece of string, this question I think is 45 minutes. It's kind of pictured at 45, and if you get a little bit more, then that's a bonus. It's going to be about 45 minutes, so you'll need to adjust it if you have extra time. So if you have a 45-minute question, and you've got to cover 2 poems, you've got quite a lot of stuff to do. You're going to be fairly busy. You must plan. You really need to. Okay? So how long do you think, feasibly, are you going to be planning for? Think about sort of your own scope, your own sort of speed of thought. Miles?
Like 5 minutes?
Yeah, I'm going to say sort of 5 to 10 minutes to give you a little bit of sort of breathing space and flexibility. So in the question, where you plan it, there's, you can't see it very well, there's the poem, okay, and we look at, right, we talk about a future, okay, then you go to Paris, you literally do that, and let's talk about bounded, I don't know, it's not a good connection, okay, and you just do P. That is your planning. Yeah, and then you can talk about trapped. That's the Paris bounded. Because you won't have the second poem with you. You have to be able to pull these off the top of your head. Then we've got a photo. Right, I'm going to link that photo up to an empty cup. Okay, so we've got, I don't know, blah, blah, blah. Where can you take that in Paris? And then you can go blah, blah, blah. Yeah? So your annotations begin the process of planning. That at the moment isn't a plan. It becomes a plan when you label. I'm going to talk about that first. And then you know what? I'm then going to bring those two together. And that's going to be my second point because it's part and parcel of what I've already said I'm going to be looking at. It's part and parcel of the concept of love. Okay? And then you know what? I'm going to talk about the pronouns because it's about people. And I'm going to do that, but I'm going to talk about the sort of the expletive and the taboo there. Then I'm going to talk about you say. And so I'm going to deal with the pronouns. So that's going to be the pronouns. And then in Paris, we're going to talk about we. There you are. And that's the third thing I'm going to say. That now becomes a plan. Okay? And just really, really roughly. As you write it, it will then work together. Okay? So you need to spend more time crafting your response than you do sort of rewriting it and then filling in the gaps. But that 5-10 minutes, you need to have that flexibility. You need to give yourself that time to find those connections and simply think. Thinking is underrated. People don't give enough time to think. You've got, 45 minutes, go. You just need to pause and slow down. If you pause and slow down, you will be able to write more because you are a little bit more focused. Dan?
In the exam, will we be given the names of the poets?
You will be told. So, for example, here the question is, how do the poets explored in dusting? And you will be given the full poem. So, for example, like this, that's what you'll be given. And then Jackie Kay will be at the bottom. You then have to know who wrote the other one. You won't be told which other one to choose. You'll have to come up with that yourself. Yeah, which is so we are going to need to know all of them reasonably well, but also the connections between them. Okay, that then gives you 30 to 35 minutes of crafted writing, and incorporate your checks. So by the time you get to the end of that, not only have you reread everything loads and loads of times, your argument has got logic, it's going in the right direction, and we're okay. We're okay. So you can, feel confident that by the time that they say put your pen down, or the end of that particular question, you've done a good job because you've covered everything that you need to do. Okay? Are there any questions at this point? No.